The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi, and welcome back to Mr. Fred's Tech Talks. This is your go-to podcast from GetMeCoding.com. And I'm Mr. Fred, your guide through the world of coding, tinkering, and tech adventures. Today is a special doubleheader. It's my birthday, and it's the anniversary of the Apollo 11 lunar landing, both in the month of July, so buckle up, because we're celebrating rocket and cake. Everyone likes cake.
Talking about gadgets, games, and gears. AI buzzing in your ears. Parents, teachers, kids unite. We're learning tech and doing it right. Oh, it's a tap, swipe, scroll kind of show where zeros and ones are ready to go. From old school DOS to robots that talk, we're jamming with Mr. Fred's Tech Talks.
First of all, what's on the workbench? Before we blast off, here's what's happening at GetMeCoding headquarters this summer. I am working on updating some courses we currently offer, and we're weaving in some new ones that feature AI development. Stay tuned for that. I've also been sketching out our next Microsoft MakeCode lesson. If you follow us on YouTube, you know that I review various projects where I tinker with robots. I'm a big fan of building something, pushing code out to it, and seeing it work. We will be working on some new things there. And then right around the corner, with the holiday gift-giving seasons coming up, I will be preparing the holiday coding toy idea book. Now, this is a fully downloadable PDF that I offer for free that you can come out, and it'll help you find that perfect tech gift for your young person. That is already going to be put into motion here starting in August. Wow, can you believe it? All right, so let's go on to the main part of our show today.
Failure is not an option.
We are go for launch.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program.
As I said this month, I'm recording this after my birthday, but it's my birthday. Each year, July rolls around, and I'm reminded that learning should feel like a gift. To celebrate, I'm sharing some of my favorite tech history with you. That brings us to the second milestone this month, July 20th, 1969. That's when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. Did you know the astronauts trusted a roughly 64 kilobit guidance computer to bring them home? I wrote about this and 4 surprising facts in an article titled The Apollo 11 Software, 4 Things You Probably Didn't Know. And that link will be in the show notes, and you can find it over at GetMeCoding.com. There are 4 nuggets that you could take away from that particular story. And I'm going to go into those a little bit, but I encourage you to go over to the website and check it out. I want to talk about the period of time where I found out that my birthday was on the same day that they landed on the moon. As a kid, in elementary school, and then in middle school, going to the library was a big deal. It was like a treat. You know, you got out of the classroom and you got to go to the library. And when you got to go to the library, it was different. This is pre-internet. So you would go there and there would be books, magazines, and so on. For the younger folks that are listening to this podcast right now, the internet is a portal to everything we learn. Today, I could tell you as a university professor, our library is just that thing. It is a digital portal into the information realm. Back in the day, before digital artifacts, the books, the magazines, we had books and magazines. And I think it was this conversation I had with my friends where we were saying, hey, what famous thing took place on your birthday? I didn't know. So I went over to the librarian. She recommended I look into an encyclopedia. Encyclopedias were great books that had a lot of information summarized in one spot, as opposed to looking all over the place, like many of us do with searches on the web. we would look up information, but it was right there in one book. So I opened up the encyclopedia and I looked up a way to look up dates. And sure enough, July 20th was in there. I'm like, whoa, that's my birthday. Seeing your birthday in print is a whole other experience. Then I looked further and sure enough, it was the story of Neil Armstrong, the first man to set foot on the moon. It happened on my birthday. It was like lightning striking. Such a unique feeling. I really felt like a celebrity in a weird way. And I'm not related to Neil Armstrong. I'm not famous in any regards to, being connected to NASA directly. But that uncovering the history started to set me on my path to where I am today. I will share in later episodes my full story. And did I become an astronaut? We'll wait and see. It made me curious. It was one of those moments where I wanted to know more. And because it was the lunar landing, I thought it would be really cool to understand the technology a little bit more. Now, granted, I was a little bit younger. I didn't understand all the physics, which would be the science that would get a rocket from the ground here at Earth to the moon and then back. And the technology, obviously. I understand, too, when I was uncovering this little bit of history, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have computers in our houses yet. Computers were still these big mainframes. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So this began my entry into a much broader world just because of a simple exercise of me trying to figure out what famous event took place on my birthday. How about that, right? When you go out to read this article, there's 4 key things in there. You're going to learn about a woman named Margaret Hamilton and how she was leading a team that helped write all the lines of software programming code that would control the automatic guidance computer, the Apollo guidance computer, the AGC. It's different than what today is in terms of computing. Also, you're going to learn that the language that this computer was using was something known as assembly. Assembly is what we also call machine code. This is the zeros and the ones. This is the lowest level that a computer understands. And we'll talk about that as we understand what programming languages are. Then what was really interesting, and this could easily be a movie if I don't believe I've seen it made into one yet. There was something known as the 1202 alarm. And what was happening was as the astronauts were now getting ready to land on the moon, they're descending from space down through whatever element of the moon's atmosphere existed. An alert happened, an alarm went off. In other words, an error was encountered in the software code. What was really interesting when you read the blog is how they had to quickly fix it. So astronauts are free falling in this spacecraft to the surface of the moon and the computer is failing. I think one way you could think about that is, in light of today, say you're driving on vacation and you're going to a place that you've never been before. It's very late at night. Well, you probably have your iPhone or your Android device using the GPS to get you to where you want to go. And, it's giving you all your turn-by-turn directions and where there's stoplights and all that stuff. And you're getting that. You've never been to this place before. But then all of a sudden, the GPS goes down because the internet connection is really bad in that area, or your cell phone service just drops you. Now you're flying blind or you're driving blind. That would be somewhat similar to what those astronauts felt like at that point because they didn't have any clear control over correcting this. The correction had to come from the computer programmers back on Earth. Now, that's heroism, right? Bravery. Maybe some people will call that crazy. But these astronauts were now trying to figure out. And what they did, they essentially rebooted it. That means they restarted the computer. But what they did was they engaged in something known as a real-time recovery. Real-time is a phrase we often use in computing that indicates data is moving live right now. There were systems early on in the past 10, 15 years that would move data not in real time. You would wait. So you would have 2 computer systems. One would be the live one where a lot of the activity would be taking place, and then you would have another system that you would use later, but it wouldn't get updated for minutes, hours, possibly days. A lot of that's going away because of the way we build systems today. But this Apollo 11 event is by far one of the first most significant real-time debugging events that took place. I think really, if you're a fan of space travel and you like history, I would tell you to do this, and I would tell you to go out to GitHub. In 2016, the entire Apollo 11 software code landed on GitHub. It has a whole bunch of human-friendly comments and naming conventions. When you're writing computer code, you often put little notes in there referred to as comments. For those of you who have done any software programming, you know, we always tend to groan when we say, oh, we have to comment our code because it feels like extra work. Not only are you trying to write the computer code, now you got to write comments. But those comments become really helpful if you ever have to revisit that portion of your software code because you might forget what it was about. There's a lot of neat comments in there, and naming conventions are, we'll say for now, a way that you would uniquely identify something. But in the comments, there were things like burn, baby, burn, and that had to do with firing the engines at a specific time and so on. But you can go out there and review. Even if you don't know how to read assembler, you could read the comments, and it's really interesting. So if you're not familiar with what GitHub is a code repository. It's a place where people place programming code so others can have access to it. It's a way to share your programming code. It has then grown into a way where not only can you share the code, you can modify the code. We'll talk about what GitHub is in a later episode, but it is it's in one way, and well, I guess in light of this, it's a kind of like a museum because it has this old code in there, and it's just kind of cool to look back at. I really love talking about this topic. I like history. I'm a big fan of space travel history. I think one of the things that I like from this is how we can learn from this. I mentioned in a little bit of those factoids that you could dig into in the blog post that the program running inside this particular spacecraft occupied 64 kilobytes of RAM. That's random access memory. Every computer that we have typically today has RAM and ROM, RAM being random access memory, ROM being read-only memory. Just to put it in perspective, 64 kilobytes of RAM is less than the smallest modern smartwatch. And when you think about what this code was really doing at that time, because it only had access to so much memory. Today we have access to tons of memory. But back then, they really had to understand how to optimize, making sure that when they wrote their code, it had to fit inside of the specific space. You didn't have the luxury of overflowing it. And if it did, it would create errors. I think that's an amazing challenge, essentially working within your confines. Now, maybe 50 years from now, we'll look back at this time, how we develop code and we interact with technology, and we'll say, wow, look at what we did with that and how much we achieved. Now we have even more stuff. Get it? It is a continuum and we're always evolving. But I think it's just neat to see how groups rise to the occasion to make what would seem like the impossible possible. Check out the blog post, check out the YouTube video, and I showcase the code snippets and so on. All right. That is it. I hope that July is an awesome month for you. If you're enjoying the summer months, it's vacation time. Some students are already getting ready to go back to school. Yikes. I will be too. It's a great time to get outside, have some fun, play, and make the best out of every day. All right, now let's go over to the tech tip of the day. Learn from legacy code. Just as I highlighted in our talk, legacy code being software programming, legacy meaning, well, older, right? So don't just write code if you're beginning your coding journey. Read it. Explore historical or open source projects on GitHub. You'll see real-world solutions to tough problems and learn best practices straight from the source. That's my tip for the day. Learn from legacy code. All right, so here we are. We're wrapping up this episode, and I want to say thanks for celebrating July milestones with me. And here's how you can keep up with the momentum of learning, right? Go over to the GetMeCoding.com blog and read the Apollo 11 software post. I think you'll find it interesting. I would love to know your thoughts on it. Why not go over and also watch the YouTube video embedded in the blog post? Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Please share it with a friend. Rate us as 5 stars and follow on social media. You can find me on Instagram for GetMeCoding, Facebook for GetMeCoding. You could also find us over on YouTube at GetMeCoding. Until next time, keep coding, keep celebrating. Remember, the sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning. Mr. Fred, signing off. See you.